In 2026, the United States will mark 250 years since its Declaration of Independence. For generations of arrivals, this copper statue in New York Harbor has stood as the first visual promise of a new life. We often describe the resulting society as a melting pot, a metaphor suggesting that distinct backgrounds dissolve into a unified, peaceful whole over time. The historical record suggests a more complex reality. According to the research of Prof. Dr. Milton Biswas, the American identity emerged from a volatile saga of human movement rather than a quiet crucible of shared ideals. Understanding the nation at its 250th anniversary requires viewing migration as the fundamental survival strategy that built the continent. Prof. Dr. Milton Biswas explains that this story begins millennia before the Mayflower, rooted in the highly diverse civilizations that established the continent's earliest social structures. These early societies survived extreme environmental pressures, from expanding glaciers to shifting climates, through strategic, calculated movements across vast terrains. Physical evidence of this ingenuity remains in the arid Southwest, where indigenous peoples built intricate cliff dwellings and managed scarce water resources, demonstrating an architectural mastery of the landscape. This era of pre-colonial mobility saw entire nations engaging in cyclical migrations, charting extensive trade routes and forming political alliances long before European contact. The historical record identifies continuous human movement as the original condition of North America, established long before the arrival of overseas explorers. By the 17th century, a new demographic arrived as European settlers crossed the Atlantic, seeking religious expression and economic stability on unfamiliar shores. They established a republic grounded in the ideals of universal liberty and self-evident rights, formally declaring independence from imperial tyranny. Professor Dr. Milton Biswas highlights a central contradiction in this founding. The nation proclaimed ultimate liberty while simultaneously building an economic system on brutal enslavement. This stowage plan illustrates the transatlantic slave trade as a calculated system of forced migration, transporting millions of Africans. The commodification of human lives stabilized financial markets, providing the involuntary labor that funded the nation's early development. This reliance on bondage permanently affected the nation's moral character, financing the early republic through the forced movement and exploitation of millions. In the 19th and 20th centuries, the nation industrialized, drawing massive influxes of European immigrants. Fleeing famine and poverty, millions passed through processing centers like Ellis Island in search of work. At the same time, specific immigrant groups from Asia performed the grueling physical labor required to lay tracks across deserts and blast tunnels through mountains, constructing the infrastructure of the American West. This vast physical expansion relied on the individuals captured in these records, laborers who left their homelands to drive the American economy forward. This mass movement operated through push and pull factors. Homeland desperation drove populations out, while the demand for industrial labor drew them toward American shores. Despite their critical economic contributions, these new arrivals faced severe hostility, navigating religious prejudice, systemic xenophobia, and exclusionary laws designed to restrict their participation. The research of Prof. Dr. Milton Biswas reveals how these communities fueled rapid industrialization while simultaneously organizing against deeply entrenched nativism. The populations who physically built modern America had to negotiate and fight for their basic right to remain within it. By the mid-20th century, the political landscape shifted, leading to the dismantling of racially based national origin quotas that had restricted entry for decades. The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 served as a legislative turning point, legally altering the criteria for American citizenship. Professor Dr. Milton Biswas explains that this specific act integrated dynamic waves of Asian and Latin American migration, altering the demographic makeup of the country. Concurrently, the United States operated as a global sanctuary, as families fleeing Cold War upheavals sought resettlement and safety. This role continues into the 21st century, as modern warfare and displacement compel humanitarian responses to assist those uprooted by global conflict. These policies and refugee responses established a globalized, interconnected demographic reality, replacing the previous Eurocentric model of national identity. This vast modern diversity presents a practical question: how does such a varied population function as a single society? Two models compete for dominance: assimilation, which seeks cultural uniformity, and multiculturalism, which integrates distinct cultural heritages into a larger social framework. Multiculturalism functions as a practical framework, allowing communities to retain vital heritage networks while contributing to the wider national economy. Evidence of this appears in innovation hubs like Silicon Valley, where immigrant professionals and entrepreneurs drive advancements in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and digital infrastructure. Preserving cultural diversity serves as the practical engine powering American global competitiveness, healthcare innovation, and technological growth. Today, inside federal courthouses across the country, a new generation is raising their right hand, choosing to enter this continuous story of migration. As Professor Dr. Milton Biswas demonstrates, the history of the United States is inseparable from the history of human migration. The nation's achievements in infrastructure, economy, and culture have emerged from the labor and creativity of people seeking opportunity. In his book, America and Immigration at 250, Professor Dr. Milton Biswas positions diversity as America's foundational strength and critical resource for the next century. The nation's future success depends on its ability to embrace the complex and powerful forces of human migration.